So today I'm going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the power of board champions. Let me say that in my tenure as a nonprofit CEO, that I was blessed with several board champions. And so what are board champions? Well, board champions are those board members who are people of influence. They are people who are respected on the board, and they have a passion and a belief in the mission. These are board champions. And every CEO needs a good board champion. And not just a good board champion, but you might need a couple good board champions. And they are important. Here is why they are important. They are important because every now and then, as a CEO of a nonprofit organization, you have to lead from behind. And so, in leading from behind, your board champion can be the voice of maybe something that might be unpopular, right? Something that may be a challenge to you. I'll give you an example. Let's say if you're an organization who doesn't have board giving right now as a requirement. Well, your board champion can be that voice for you, or to say this is a best practice, this is what we need to do, and this is the why around it. Let's say I know when I was trying to get my board to understand that we needed to do a capital campaign, my board champion was the voice of that. So sometimes it's like, when you have kids, I hate to say this, but as a parent, you say something again and again, and the kids just ignore you. But then what happens is somebody else says it and they think it's the best thing since sliced pie. So really your board champion is your sliced pie, right? They can say it and they can speak peer to peer to the board and get things done and get changes done. They can be that voice when something challenging comes up that the organization needs to address, and you need the board members to address it. Your board champion can do that. So, how do you identify the people who are going to be your board champions? Well, that is someone that is respected, that is someone that has influence, and that is someone who has the passion for the mission. And so look at your board and say, who can be my board champion? And once you know who can be the champion, what you have to do now is you have to make sure that they are properly equipped and they are properly trained. So, how do you do that? Those are the people that you make sure you get them to a conference. They go to a conference. They go to the training. They hear the message, not just from you, but they hear the best practice of what a board is supposed to be and what an organization is supposed to be. They hear it from a third party, and they're at this conference, and they have all these high performing board members, and they have the speakers on the stage saying, this is what the board is supposed to do, and this is how an organization is supposed to be run. They have the facilitator reinforcing that with the work sessions. That is, you're building their capacity. You're getting them excited. They become like, oh man, they'll turn to you. I've had this happen. They will turn to you when you're in that audience and you're sitting and you're listening, right? They'll turn to you and they say, well, why aren't we doing that on our board? And you're thinking to yourself, man, I've been trying to get them to do that, but I can't. And then you go, you know what? That's something you can take back to the board. We can do that. Make a note of it. And when we go back to the next board meeting, you can talk about that. And we can get that done. Get them excited. You become their cheerleader. They are your board champion and you cheering them on. So you get them trained up and you get them excited, right? Then once they are excited and trained up, you still, as your board champion, because I'm very strategic about this, as your CEO, your board champion, you have to build a genuine relationship with them. And so with my board champion, we went to lunch once a week. We attended, I learned about their family. I attended family functions. I visited them in their home. I mean, we went all in developing this relationship because it was needed. You want to build a genuine relationship with your board champion. And like I said, it doesn't have to be champion, it could be champions. I've had, over the course of a 20-year history, I have had 5 board champions. I can name them: Ella De La Rosa, Doris Albin, Millie Smith, Judy Flowers, and Eddie Villanueva. Now you notice there's a pattern. It was four women, one male. But those were my champions. And those were the people that, when change needed to happen amongst the board, they got it done. Now, Doris and Ella served at the same time, and Millie and Judy served at the same time. So I always try to make sure that the champions that I had a partner. Bless Eddie's heart, he was out there on his own, but I tried to make sure they always had a partner. And at one point, 3 of my champions did serve on the board all at the same time. And so when that happened, man, we experienced great growth. And we needed to do that because we were transitioning. We were growing. We grew our budget. Not only did we grow our budget, we increased the number of clients that we serve. We built a building. And so your champions can have great impact on your organization. And so it is a strategy to identify those champions, and not only identify them, but invest the time that it needs to develop those relationships. Because at the end of the day, those relationships are going to have significant impact on the organization. You heard what I said. Our budget grew. Not only did our budget grew, our board grew. Our board went from 10 to 12 to 21. Our facilities grew. We went from never owning a facility to building a facility and owning a facility. Our service grew. The number of clients that we served grew. Our reputation in the community grew. And I credit this to those board champions. And the reason why I credit it to those board champions is because they were the catalyst for change. That's what they are. They were the catalyst for change. They introduced, they allowed me to introduce individual giving to our organization. Before, we were reliant on municipal grants, government grants. We were reliant on United Way funding. So we had no individual giving. And it was our board champions who said, we need to do individual giving. Not only do we need to do individual giving, as board members, we should be giving to the organization. And they introduced that. And not only did they introduce that, when we did our first annual giving campaign, they led the charge. They were the first to step up, to sign up to do face-to-face solicitation. They trained the other board members on face-to-face solicitation. They were able to be the cheerleader for when the board members were like, I don't know if I can do this. Asking for money makes me nervous. It's not something that I do. They said, Sabrina, the board's not feeling comfortable. We need to practice. I thought it was hokey, but I did it anyway because my champions were asking me to do it. We set up scenarios where we practiced the fundraising ask. We went over the objections. We did all of that. And you know what? Our first year out, it might not seem a lot to some, but we raised $85,000 without putting on an event, without having to do a gala or a golf tournament or any of those things. We raised $85,000 simply asking for money. That was a result of my board champion because we went to a conference. They heard about the best practice. They came back to the board and said, this is something that we need to do. Now, I have been saying that before, but I just got pushback. But when the board member of peer to peer comes and says that we need to do this, and not only do we need to do this, here is my check. Here is my check to this annual campaign, and start that in front of the other board members at a board meeting. That's a champion. That's why you need a board champion. They will change the game for you. Not only that, when in dealing with the board, let me give real full disclosure here. As a CEO, you're not perfect, and I was not perfect. And sometimes I needed my board champion to stand by my side when I messed up. If I messed up, let me full disclosure here. Let me tell you this story. So I got called into the superintendent's office one time as the CEO. Some of you know I dealt with after school programs. I served in a Boys and Girls Club. And so one of my staff did a flyer. Now, this might sound insignificant, but it was a big deal. They did a flyer. They were recruiting from a high school, and they said something about the high school being the best school. So a principal from another high school in the same district saw that flyer, got very upset, reached out to the superintendent's office, made a complaint, and I got called into the superintendent's office. I've never been called into the superintendent's office before. I had been trying to get a partnership with them for years. Maybe I was smart. No, it wasn't it. I really got called into the superintendent's office. So I called my board champion. I was like, this just happened. Realized we messed up. I don't want to go into this meeting by myself. Can you go into this meeting with me? And she did. She showed up. She sat there with me. She helped me navigate the conversation. It not only showed that I took their complaint serious, but I showed up with a board member. And so it wasn't as if I was trying to keep it hidden or within the staff. I brought the board member along, and I felt safe enough to do that. That's what a board champion can do for you. You don't have to be alone in the journey when you have great board champions. They can help you when you have a challenging situation with the board. They can help you when you have a challenging situation with your partners. They can help you when you have a challenging situation with the community. So if you don't have a good board champion, take a look around your boardroom and see who could be developed into a good board champion. And if you look around your boardroom and you don't have one, then that is a recruitment gap. And you need to go about recruiting yourself a good potential board champion. And so if you're interested on how to recruit board members, just comment board, and I'll send you a link to the 3-day board challenge that I have coming up, because they are game changers. Board champions are worth their weight in gold. And I am of the belief we had term limits, but we did not have the term limits where people had to cycle off our board. So if I had me a good board champion, I was going to keep them around. And my board champions served on my board 5 plus, 10 plus years. And we were able to make a huge impact in that organization. And so I hope this message resonated with someone and you needed to hear it. Selena, thank you for joining. And I want you to remember this, that your mission matters and deserves to be funded to its fullest capacity. Y'all have a great day, and bye-bye.